So, what is the image that we have now? From Bailey, from Seth, from Moody's analysis. That we go through this tunnel, we find that we still have a body. This body can fly, it can move instantaneously, it can move through matter, it can see and it can hear, but it cannot affect matter, and it cannot be seen or heard. Now, I'd like to speak to you before we go on with the next questionnaire that you have. Number 2, leaving the material world behind. Imagine that you are about to leave your physical body and that you will not be returning to this physical body or personality. What will you miss most in leaving? Do not include loved ones. We will work with them later. So you have a list of things: material objects, home, sensual pleasures, ambitions, professional activities, ideas and philosophies, aspects of your personality, talents and abilities, or other things. What will you miss in this physical world leaving it? Many people say, I will miss nature, I will miss the beauty of nature. What indication that we have had from those who have died and come back is that the nature that they experienced there is incomparably more beautiful than we've experienced here. 2, what 3 things will you miss most when you have to leave the physical world? Except for people, okay? You can put your dog if you want, or your cat. 3, what are the beliefs you would like to strengthen in order to be able to leave the physical realm more easily and with the least negative feelings? And here, declare your last will and testament. What would you like to happen with the material possessions which you are leaving behind? So you're asked here to think about the fact that you're going to leave your body. You can leave it tomorrow, you can leave it in 40 years, in 50 years. What do you want to happen with what belongs to you? This is a resource. It's been temporarily loaned to you from the earth, and you're going to leave it all behind, and you're going to, where do you want it to go? Unless, of course, you choose, I think I told you about this company in America where you can leave all of your money and leave a certain questions that you have to answer in your next life so that you can get it all back. Of course, I think the only one that's going to get rich on this is this company who's going to keep all the money. Okay. Now, the next aspect is that we are met by beings who have the purpose of helping us with the transition. Now, this could be relatives, regardless of whether they have reincarnated or not. What we'll be discussing later is that help can come from souls which are incarnated or from souls that are not incarnated. We could be helping souls who are coming and going in our sleep. In our sleep. We could be helping souls which are leaving their bodies and souls which are planning to incarnate. We could be serving, we could have a night job. Okay? Night job that is doing this as we're leaving our body and helping these various souls. But I think most of the work is done by souls that are not presently incarnated, which have taken on this purpose of helping the souls who are disoriented, both in leaving and in incarnating. Now this could be called guardian spirits, or angels, or beings of light, or relatives. And sometimes, because these beings have the ability to take any form, it could be a being of light taking the form of a relative in order to aid us in this process, so that we trust, so that he or she gains our trust. Now, Socrates believed this very much. That he says, when a man dies and his spirit is released, the guardian spirit takes charge of it and leads it to a certain place where those gathered must first stand their trial. So this idea of the helper and the trial are very much connected. We see it also in Moody's description, that the being of light is there to help with the trial, the examination. And Socrates also says that the guidance of the spirit was absolutely necessary, as there were many breaks and branches on the roads to Hades, that there were many difficulties. So these difficulties are created by our own minds. They are creations of our negative thought forms. Just as our negative thought forms become nightmares in our dreams, we can, in the same way, and we will in the same way, create realities based on our positive and negative thought forms in leaving the body. They are not real, just as our dreams are not real, but we can become immersed in these realities for hundreds of years if we want to. You see? So it's important that there be this help there, so that they advise us that this is not a reality, so that we can move away from that. Now, Dr. Osis, in examining the thousands of people in America and in India, found that terminal patients predominantly hallucinate phantoms representing dead persons, who often come to aid the patient's transitions into post-mortem existence. And he says that the roots of this experience seem to go beyond pronounced personality differences between sexes, physiological factors such as type of illness, and beyond educational levels and religious differences. I mean, in India he did it on Hindus and Muslims, in America on Jews and Christians, because those are the basic religions in America, and he found the same results. Regardless of illness, regardless of religion, regardless of educational background, people saw spirits coming to help them in the transition process before they left. The takeaway purpose in these visitations were 76% in America, 69% in India, and 79% in the second test in America, second research which he did. Now, what is the Christian perception of this process? I found a book with the teachings of Saint Anthony of the Desert, who lived about 50 years or 100 years, or 300 years, I don't know, after Christ, in the Egyptian desert. And he's one of the basic fathers of the church. And it has his discussions with this angel, in which an angel explains to him what happens to the soul after it leaves the physical body. Now, it's a long one, so I'm not going to read you. I'm going to tell you briefly what the explanation is. That the soul, after leaving the body, encounters angels and demons who are fighting for this soul's soul. Who is going to take the soul? And the angels present all of the positive acts of the soul, and the demons present all of his negative, all of his crimes, you see. And so that they're trying to see this court case taking place, this trial, as we said earlier, taking place, and to see where the soul is going to go. The soul is going to go with the demons to hell, or is going to go with the angels to heaven. Of course, we see this as another symbolic, I see this as another symbolic way of understanding this self-created examination, because nobody in Moody's research or in the research of others has experienced the trial as a form of judgment or condemnation. They have always been encountered in a way that, from the being of light, that this is a learning process. You are not being condemned, you are learning. Look at what you have done, see where you have not functioned with love, see where you have been selfish, learn from that and grow. There's been no sense of condemnation, even though these people have been programmed to believe this. Because what have we been programmed from our birth? To believe that we're going to be judged and we're going to be condemned for our mistakes. Now, Yorgos Meletis, this theologian who wrote the book about life after death, says that the soul doesn't depart for life beyond all alone, for the life beyond all alone. This is not possible, because even when we go from one town to another, we need a guide. Thus, of course, a guide is much more necessary when our soul leaves the body and goes to the afterlife. Now it's interesting that in Helen Wambach's study, Helen Wambach did the hypnosis on 750 people and asked them about the moment of choosing their birth. We're talking now about guides, okay? 81% experienced that they chose their birth, and 59% discovered that they were helped by a counselor, by one or more counselors. And 10% that the counselors were already living, so they were being guided by beings already in the physical body. Let's hear what Rambach says in her book. It was interesting to me that 10% of the subjects reported people in their current lifetime counseling them before their birth. Some would have a mother or father counseling them. Some would have relatives who had died prior to their birth. Some would have people that they would know later in coming into this lifetime. Oddly, there seemed to be no distinction between people who were alive at the time of birth was being decided upon and people who were dead or not yet born. In the world between lifetimes, our chronological time system, or whether one is physically alive or dead, seem to be of relatively little importance. So it seems that we are already functioning on that level every night as we sleep. Now another piece from the Christian concept. According to St. Athanasius, the soul is self-supporting and self-moving. It moves the body, but is not moved by any other external source. So since the soul is self-moving, it can also move on its own after separating from the body. If the soul which dies, it is the soul which it is not the soul which dies, but the body dies when the soul departs. Even when the soul is embodied, it isn't restrained. Instead, often while the body is sleeping, the ever-wakeful soul leaves the physical body, and although being an embodied soul, it travels to celestial and angelic worlds. This is the Christian teachings of St. Athanasius. It is obvious that the soul can obtain a more clear awareness of immortality when it is liberated from the body. Since it was able to live a bodiless life while being connected to the body, that is, while dreaming, its life will certainly continue after the body's death. The soul is immortal, and that is why it thinks and contemplates on immortality. Seth says to us that we could be playing the role of the guide. Let's see what he says here. As mentioned earlier, however, in the sleep state, you may help recently dead persons, or departed souls, complete strangers, to acclimate to after-death conditions, even though this knowledge is not available to you in the morning. So others, strangers, may communicate with you when you are sleeping and even guide you through various periods of your life. It is not a simple matter to explain life conditions as you know them. So it is extremely difficult to discuss the complexities of which you are not aware. The main point I want to make in this chapter is that you are already familiar with all the conditions you will meet after death, and you can become consciously aware of them to some extent.